Now, the major players in social media, YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, and you know how over time the major players usually consolidate into one big major player who takes over the field? You know what that means? That means that sometime in the near future, there's only going to be one social media site, YouTwitface.
Social media is the solitary activity of typing messages online to mostly imaginary friends.
On Twitter, you don't have friends, you have followers. Now, if any of you have any tendencies towards paranoia, do not go on Twitter. I signed up on Twitter and now I think I'm being followed.
Smart idea to feature humor at your conference, and here's how to ensure it will go over well and leave your audience with an appreciative smile. I've been creating and presenting business satire exclusively for conferences for over 12 years for major companies and associations. That's why the content is always appropriate. Plus, I work closely with you to customize my presentation so your audience truly gets an exclusive experience.
Now, I know for you, you all have young patients. You know, and all they do is they text. They don't really talk on the phone anymore. They do not use email. They text. You know what that means? That means that even when they're in your office sitting in the dentist's chair, if you actually want to communicate with them, you need to text them. That's the way to do it, I'm telling you. Sitting right there. It's the way you get meaningful communication going with the young teens, right? Am I right? This is what you're going to have to do. By the way, you know, with texting, everything has to get condensed into short little acronyms. Here's a couple. I don't know if you're using these yet or not, but you're going to have to learn them. RAS, rinse and spit. Yep. TWHAB, this won't hurt a bit.
So because of our addiction to social media and all the things that we have to do with our work, we need time management to try to balance all this out. And one of the most important components of time management is multitasking. Now, as you know, multitasking is the ability to perform several tasks simultaneously without paying sufficient attention to any of the tasks. That's what multitasking is. We can't even walk and text without causing problems. Did you know this is true, that in London, they're actually putting pads on street lamps so people don't hurt themselves? You know what we should do instead? If you want to text and walk, you should have to wear a padded suit. You remember all the promises of how technology was going to increase our efficiency? Remember that? Did that really happen? Well, let's look at some examples. For instance, the phone used to just be used for making calls. Remember, that was pretty easy. Well, now you have your phone. It does your email and texting and surfing and music, the camera, GPS. And, by the way, how are you supposed to look at a website on your phone if you're over about 40 years old? You know what I'm talking about? You pretty much have to go like this. Oh, yeah, look at CNN. Wow, yeah. Let me see what's going on. And now we have billions of apps for all kinds of useful things like grow a virtual chia pet, locate manhole covers while texting and walking, accepting collect calls from random prisoners, and there's even an app that shows you all the apps you used only once and you'll never use again.
Oh, exciting here. I don't know if you know about this, a new app. This is amazing. This app allows you to speak to your phone. It'll transcribe your voice into a text message, send it to a friend, and then will synthesize and speak the text message. Isn't that incredible? You know what? That's almost like calling somebody on the phone. Here's some ways you can tell if you're on cloud computing. Your program stops responding because a coworker is sucking up bandwidth watching an HD movie. If somebody's doing this to you, crank up the volume on your computer and play the following clip from the Rolling Stones.
Another big time saver I cannot overemphasize: the importance of cramming in as many acronyms into your communications as possible to save time. For example, imagine if you got an email that looks something like this. FYI, CFO needs ROI from SAS for SMP or GRD for FM, create SP and G, pub to WRS. Wait a minute, you actually understand this, don't you? Oh, this is scary.
Then we have online registration verification. You know what this is? This is to make sure that you are a live, real human being that's signing up for, whatever it is, an account, to comment, whatever you want to do online now, you have to sign up and verify. And you know how this works? It says, please type the letters that appear in the screen below. And you're like, what? What? And you're just taking a guess. You're like, I don't know, just try. Sorry, that was incorrect. Please try this.
When I started this whole process, I went to the bookstore and I bought a book, 100 Ways to Save the Planet. 100 Ways to Save the Planet. One of the first things it said was buy less paper. So I returned the book. You see, this is why it's confusing. Then I was driving in the car and I was listening to this green expert on the radio, and he said to remove unnecessary items from your vehicle to increase the mileage. So I pulled over and I told my friends to get out of the car and walk because I'm trying to save the planet. The good news is, though, that newer kinds of bulbs are coming out, like LED bulbs, but if you've seen these at the store, these bulbs are very expensive, which raises the question, how many dollars does it take to screw in a light bulb? Recycling. You can't just recycle any plastic. Oh, no. You have to look on the bottom and try to decipher the number that's on the bottom to figure out if you can or can't. Now, like number 1 and 2, yes, you can recycle. 3 and 4, you can't. 5 and 6, well, it depends on the local regulations whether you can or can't. And then it also has to be clear plastic, it has to be white plastic, it has to have a long neck and a narrow mouth. So here's my question, what happens if you're trying to recycle and you have a number 2 container with a number 4 lid with no neck and a wide mouth? What do you do? It's confusing. How about the green bathroom? There's some challenges there, right? We have the low-flow shower. Have you tried one of these where you're standing there trying to catch droplets of water and apply it to your skin so you can work up a lather with the soap? And then we have the low-flow toilet. Well, actually, all new toilets now are low-flow. It's instead of 7 gallons, they only use 1.5 gallons to flush, which is good for the planet, right? But have you tried using these? Sometimes they don't really work. You flush it and you look down and you go, I don't think that's going to go down. I don't think it's going to work. So suddenly you end up, you're flushing several times, and this only happens when you're at somebody else's house and they're yelling, is everything okay up there? Yeah, I'm fine. It's your low-flow toilet that's not working. So as much as it can be somewhat confusing about going green, it's something we really need to do. Because, don't we want to leave a cleaner, greener planet for our children and for future generations? And there are steps that we can all do that we'll talk about this morning. Some of them are more of a challenge, some of them kind of easy, the more you find out about it. So let's talk about how we got to this point. Let's go back to the very beginning when dinosaurs were roaming the earth, and they were vegetarian, which gave them terrible gas, which heated up the planet, and that caused global warming right there. And their extinction. By the 12th century, however, there was a huge advertising campaign for clean coal. And they said not only was it cheap and abundant, and yes, it did burn dirty, but they were working on a way to make it clean, and within a few years they were sure that it would be clean. Now, we are 900 years later, but they're still working on it, and they claim they are getting close. By the 1970s, we had the creation of the Environmental Protection Agency, and they were given the mission to regulate pollution into the atmosphere from business. Well, the consultants stepped in. Oh, they saw a great opportunity. So they created this environmental management systems, and they were proposing things like buzzwords, demanufacturing, end-of-life management, and their absolute favorite, renewable and sustainable consulting. That's the one that they focused on the most. In the 1990s, concern about global warming really captured public attention with the landmark British Knicker study, and as you can see, conclusive proof that the planet definitely was getting hotter. People said, okay, we've made all these advances. How can we tie this all together? We need somebody to come to the rescue and really save the planet and bring it all together. And that's what we got. Al Gore came to the rescue with sustainability. That's what the S stands for.